In today's workplace, employees come from diverse cultural backgrounds, and their values, beliefs, and behaviour patterns differ significantly. Therefore, managing cultural differences is crucial to building effective communication, trust, and respect among employees, which in turn leads to higher productivity and healthier work environment. Understanding and effectively managing these cultural differences and diversity is essential in today's global workplace. But unfortunately, this is often overlooked and can lead to misunderstandings, conflict, and missed business opportunities. Welcome to episode 32 of Give Yourself Some Leeway with me, your host, Eugene Lee. Today I am joined by Liu, a cross-cultural intelligence coach who specializes in helping international organizations improve their communications with a globalized workforce. Today we discuss the importance of cross-cultural management and how to develop strategies to ensure that cultural diversity is not only recognized, but also celebrated and embraced in the workplace. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you do, please rate and review wherever you're listening to this. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Liu. So, Liu, it's great to have you here on the show. One thing that I always like to start out with when it comes to coaches is that there's this time where they get this spark or the vision to get started with coaching. And I was wondering, what was that like for you?
Right. So it's been a bit of a journey, to be honest, because I have been working as a manager in this international organization. We work in 50 countries. And then in my job, I do a lot of training and teaching on my subject matter, like environment, disaster management. So over the years, I traveled around countries, delivering training courses. And then as part of the trainings, so you inevitably will get people come to ask you for more questions. And then that put me onto a bit of like mentoring for them. And then that started just snowballing a little bit. So and then more and more people are asking me to kind of mentoring them, both in the UK and in other countries. And then, yeah, that carried on for quite a few years. And then because I am a learner, I like to do things properly. So, and I took a few steps. One is actually to I did some training. We have in-house training to become coaches in our organization. So I did feel that and then registered as an in-house coach. And then that's made me think actually that's not quite enough for me. So the turning point actually is COVID. So when everybody got into this lockdown, and then I thought, oh, what can I do to use this time more effectively? So while others are getting into wine tasting or baking, so I took on a proper accredited coach training course. Actually, I did it like in quite a long study, actually over a year or so, and then took another exam quite rigorously to become associated certified coach, recognized by International Coaching Federation. So that's kind of consolidated my experience and sealed it as a proper sealed it for me as a proper coach. So I feel more confident and happy to really go out to do more. So at the moment, I'm coaching 4 people at work and one outside work. And then I started another 2 group coaching on cross-cultural intelligence for our own organization. So each group, 2 weeks ago, actually, each group has about 20 people. So they will last for 10 weeks. So that's kind of my journey to become a coach, really.
That's awesome. And you mentioned cross-cultural intelligence there, and I think some people just aren't aware. I think there's a lack of awareness around cross-cultural intelligence. And it's not that people are ignorant of it, or I think they're just oblivious of it, that they don't realize that cross-cultural management is a key part of business management in these modern times. So why do you think that maybe cross-cultural management might be overlooked and why it shouldn't be overlooked? What is the real importance of cross-cultural management in our times?
Definitely. I think first thing first, let me just explain what I mean by cross-cultural intelligence. I think very often people mistakenly thinking, oh, is it about just cross-cultural communication? So that's not entirely true. So cross-cultural communication is important part of cross-cultural intelligence. So when I say cross-cultural intelligence, it really means twofold of issues. One is how we, as each individual, including you and me, understand our own culture, our own cultural background, and how that affects our day-to-day behavior, really from the minute we get up from bed and to the minute we go to bed, and all the activities in between. So because it's so ingrained in you, you grow up with it. It's you are doing that doesn't mean you are aware of it. So why you're doing it? So this first level of cultural intelligence is about your own self-awareness culturally. The second is actually how where how well you are uh, learning or interested to learn about other cultures. So the same principle, how why they do what they do, what is the cultural reason behind it, but in a way that is more of a from an observational point of view rather than judgmental point of view, a learning point of view. So this is twofold. That's cultural intelligence. Uh, when it comes to management issue, I think nowadays we live in a globalized world. So the fact everything seems to be communicated in English by and large. And when you go to a business meeting, even if it's cross country, so the language people use is English. So that actually end up giving people wrong impression that we all understand each other. We all speak the same language per se. But when you get into the details of the management issues, then you soon realize actually we are not speaking the same languages. And that's where all those um, issues started to emerge. So from, yeah, throughout the whole business process, you will come to head with various issues. Then you realize actually, there's something missing here. I don't know what it is. So I recently wrote an article in a magazine. Actually, it's called one missing management tool. Exactly that. So that's why it's people don't know what they don't know.
When it comes to cross-cultural management, exactly as you say, it's the missing tool. Like I did a course in quality management and it was never covered. And like it wasn't that um like my course was very the students in the course were it was very diverse. Like we were coming from all over Europe, a few people from the US, and cross-cultural management never came up as a topic when it came to being a quality manager. And now that I am aware of cross-cultural management, I'm like, why was this never just discussed before? Is it something that's only new since 2020 when we're all working online? And I'm
Yeah,
like, of course, it's been. I'm assuming it's obviously been there a lot around a lot longer than that, and maybe it just hadn't been addressed. So with people, let's say management trying to take on cross-cultural management across their workplaces now, what do you feel are the biggest challenges for managers trying to implement cross-cultural management throughout their teams?
I think the biggest challenge for the managers is about how do you marry the cross-cultural intelligence um, knowledge and skills and method with your ordinary or conventional management method. So because me, myself is a manager, so I deeply understand that issue or that challenge. So say, I think the cross-cultural issue at the moment still largely exists at the society issue or travel issue, because when people talk about cross-cultural, they tend to think of like some travel guide on either in the book or online. Say, oh, if you want to visit this country as a tourist, you need to do X, Y, Z, and do's and don'ts. But which is fine, it's equally valid. Uh, but the challenge is it doesn't matter how many cultural book you read, do's and don'ts, and you don't actually know how it translates into a workplace situation, or in particular case, like a project management process. From the beginning, you set people meet together, form a team to set a goal, dedicated tasks, managing money, managing time, managing conflict, especially, and then keep the process going until you deliver the results. So the whole process, how do you first understand what cross-cultural dynamics can at play? And secondly, how do you handle that? So that is a challenge. Yeah, it's like the two legs walking. So you need both of them to make the process work.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% get that. I actually I love your analogy there of the looking at a travel guide. And I think that's kind of where the miscommunication is. When it comes to like cross-cultural, I think a cross-cultural communication then is that a category that falls under management, under cross-cultural management?
Absolutely, absolutely. Communication is important part. The communication in many ways is a external manifestation of people's cultural perspective. So let me give you an example. So in a so-called relationship-based culture, people tend to communicate in a very friendly way, they all needs to want to build relationship in the form of email. So people would start very formally, very courteous. So they spend quite a bit of words on greeting each other. And then they go into the topic of the business. Well, in the task-oriented culture, people don't have to know each other too well. So they literally very task-oriented. So you will receive email, say, dear so-and-so, can you give me XY information? They're okay with that. But when there's two different cultural meets, so I hear complaints in my organization, our African colleagues complain, say, why do people from the UK write very rude emails to me? And then the vice versa, the UK and European colleague will say, I don't actually understand, after a whole lot of paragraphs, I don't actually understand what they're trying to say. So you can see this is an external manifestation of the way they think, they view things, because, yeah. And then it end up causing a whole lot of frustration on both sides and potentially conflict.
Yeah, and I can definitely think a few emails do come to mind of where that, let's say, barrier of communication almost is, where it's some people take things up the wrong way because of different mannerisms or different way that sentences are phrased, that they seem rude or ignorant or very demanding when the person is just trying to be like very to the point and getting something done without being having, let's say, the polite start and ending to an email, and people just take it the wrong way. They're like, oh, they're very rude, or looking, kind of ordering me around.
Mm, definitely, definitely. And obviously, with any of the business, any management, one more important aspect is about financial management. So that leads us to another set of cultural concepts, that is guilt culture versus shame culture. So if you think that by and large, the Christian-based culture are guilt culture, meaning there's quite a clear self-conscious about what is right and wrong. So it's the line is very clear. So while in the shame culture, which is the largely not the European culture, not the Christian-based culture. So like in China, where I come from, Africa, many Latin American countries. So and the Middle East. So the culture to do with right and wrong is very fluid. So it's all about whether your behavior will bring shame to yourself, to your family name, to the group, the community you belong to. So when it comes to the financial management, the most headache problem is about mismanagement of money. So in the guild culture, so it's very clear. So if you misuse 1 penny, 1 pound, it's misuse. You cross the line. While in the shame-based culture, well, people never know how much is acceptable, how much is not. So they will keep going until you tell them or get caught. And then they will think actually, oh, if I haven't got caught, then I'm okay. So one typical example is company car use. So in the European shame guild-based culture, it's very clear. You use a company car for business. While in the shame culture, you will see people use company car to drop off the wife, pick up the children along the way, and then go to the office. It's quite normal, it's quite acceptable. So you see what I mean? So that actually that has financial consequences.
And let's say I can see where that comes. Let's say the shame versus the guilt culture, and when it comes to cross-cultural intelligence, cross-cultural management,
Mm.
um, especially let's say if you're someone who's grown up in a shame culture and you're now working in a country where it's more of a guilt culture. Do you feel like someone who has grown up with that shame culture their whole life, and as you say, let's say using the company car and seeing how long they can get away with it, do you feel like they have a very rude awakening when their manager, who might come from a guilt culture, kind of tells them that they've crossed the line?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I think that again that is a potential point for conflict because they could argue to say actually yeah, it's not much. Um, they don't see it. That's what I mean by intelligence. It's about their view, their perspective on the same thing. So you need to be aware. It's not the fact that they are necessarily a bad person per se, but if you don't understand why this is a reason they behave as such, then you could quickly jump into a conclusion and make a judgment, end up having the making the situation worse. But if you're made aware of that, then you can work out different strategy to tackle that. To say actually, yeah, this is to have a private conversation to explain to them this is how it works in this country, in this context, and then to help them to understand this is not acceptable. And also more importantly, it's about the consequences. You see, the same culture is all about consequences. So it's to let them know if you do this in this guild culture, it will bring shame to your family, to your name. So it's not acceptable. So I think that will help them to toe the line, if you like, but in a more non-confrontational way, and also take a preventative approach.
Yes.
So if you have or hired somebody from broadly speaking that culture, you take a preventative approach to explain to them in advance uh, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, rather than wait until they behave according to the way they used to, and then you all of a sudden think, oh, that's not right. Then you end up in a very difficult situation. So preventative measure is also very important.
Yeah, definitely. And uh, as you said, because let's say if they did wait until someone behaved inappropriately to their standards,
Mm.
and if that, let's say that the cross-cultural management isn't in place, that can be very distressing for someone who has to go through that, let's say, cross-cultural shock.
That's right. But that also works the other way around as well. So say if a European person goes to work in China, in the Middle East, they also need to learn to adapt to see actually what is culturally acceptable and learn it. And to just really genuinely ask local people to find out what is acceptable, what is not. Way ahead, everything happens in advance.
And another thing that comes to mind, especially when, as you said, trainings around cross-cultural management, should that be done, let's say, from the top level, and let's say the training be done by top level and then communicated to employees? Or do you feel that it should be done across the board, that there should be training for managers and employees, maybe as part of induction into the company, that cross-cultural intelligence and kind of awareness should be implemented into the trainings of all staff so that everyone is aware?
Yes, I totally agree. I think the ideal situation would be you have different levels of training. Definitely at the induction level, you have the general awareness. So make sure everybody is aware of all those differences, some basic principles, and some basic methods, so that as part of induction, and then according to the position of the people, you can actually give more extensive training, like what we are doing in our own organization is to have more extensive program. We have two programs, the cross-cultural awareness course, as well as this cross-cultural intelligence for managers. So you have the choice so that it's kind of tiered approach.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. That you'd of course have the management skills that you're going to be teaching management, let's say for the top tier, and then for the lower tier, then for the employees, for lower down the chain command, that you just have an awareness course, so that sometimes you can teach, let's say, a management course to the top tier, but it would be communicated differently from manager to manager.
Mm.
And when that's being communicated down the board to the down the chain of command to employees, they'll all have a different um, understanding of of cross-cultural awareness then. So I think that is very important to have across the board a cross-cultural awareness, just so that everyone is aware of uh, the company's vision, the company's work ethics in that branch,
Yes,
as opposed to other branches.
yeah, yes, definitely. I think companies need to be aware that what is the if that cultural identity of the company. Say if it's American company, it carries American cultural identity. If it's a British organization, it carries British cultural organization, but that exists only in the head office level. So then that identity get diluted wherever they open a branch, and then they get mixed with the local cultural identity. So people need to be aware of that. Yeah, particularly now, um, more and more companies are hiring internationally. You end up in a situation, say, if your American company open a branch in India, they might end up hiring somebody from Kenya. These are real scenarios, and then you have three culture in the mix. So yeah, it's not that simple anymore.
I think that's a good point that you made there. about, let's say, an American company exactly at head office. And when they're bringing in their cross-cultural training to, let's say, their branches internationally, should that vision that the American company has at head office carry through, let's say, through that cross culture, let's say the culture of the American head office, should that vision carry through in their branches worldwide? Should they have some element of that? Or should the head branch be like, this is how things are done in America? But of course, we have different standards at each of our branches in their respective countries.
That is a for each company to really work out in a detail. So as part of their company identity or branding, what are the things has to be non-negotiable? What are the things are negotiable? Uh, Let me give you an example. So some companies very commonly now, they have the same product but have different trading name in different country. So a typical example is there is a British car manufacturer called Vauxhall. You're probably aware of that. I think they are not so known these days anymore. But then they have a different trading name called Opel in Germany. So it's the same product. So this kind of negotiation needs to be done like case by case and company by company. They need to work out themselves. I recently read Starbucks coffee, you know, they have a logo. It's like a lady with a fishtail on their logo. But I read recently the Starbucks in the Gulf countries, the Middle East Arab countries, they changed that in order to suit the local culture. So, but still carry the same kind of shape and form. So all this, like you say, you use the word very nicely, nuances. A lot of nuances. How do you preserve your company identity, culture, as well as to adjust to the local context?
It's actually great that you said that about Starbucks and the let's say the logo, the nuanced logo changed in Arabian countries because my partner at the moment is collecting Starbucks little espresso cups and from
Uh-huh.
different countries. So I'd like
Yeah.
to see what's the difference once she goes down to, let's say, the Arabian countries and see if she'll notice the different Starbucks logo on them. So that
Yeah.
is very interesting. How, yeah, exactly the nuanced approach to keeping the company identity and or the company vision and branding, but nuanced in a way that it is accepting, let's say, inclusive of the different cultures and work ethics of their international branches.
Absolutely. And also there is also the other side of it is not to cause offense. I last week I actually wrote I post on LinkedIn every week about those issues. Then 2 weeks ago I posted one article about no green hat, please. It's about how uh, company how the green hat, the color green hat in Ireland is a just Irish color. It's green hat. Man wears it. But in China, is absolutely no, because in Chinese culture, to to say a man is wearing green hat is implying the man's girlfriend or wife is cheating on him. So it's a total humiliation. So therefore, you need to be aware of that. So we have real case like environmental groups from the US go to visit China and then give the green hat as the green cap as gift to the Chinese side. Of course, the Chinese will have a laugh behind their back. No way you're going to wear that. And then similarly, when I post that article, one of the Tanzanian professor, he said, "Yeah, I remember that our Tanzania, our ruling party, their color is green. So they went to China. Also, everybody is wearing a green cap to visit. So again, becomes a laughing stock."
Yeah, I'd never even heard of that before. So if you were wearing a green hat in China, is it like is it that you're kind of professing that your wife is cheating on you?
Yes, so nobody would wear a green hat, especially men.
That's so str and is there let's was there a reason behind that in the first place? Was it that people actually did wear green hats?
I
Was it
think
a
that
matter of
goes,
shame or
yes, I think that goes back a long time ago through the Asian literature. Somewhere along the line, this was used or described as a sign of as of the humiliation for the men. So then never again. So that actually is linking us quite nicely to another cultural concept. It's called the high context culture versus low context culture. The high context culture means when people communicate, their communication is deeply rooted in their history, and they use a lot and refer a lot to their Asian literature, stories, can go back thousands of years, like in the China's case. So when people say very little things, but everybody understand what it means, what it implies. While in the low context culture, that you have to spell it out, the facts and information. People can't. It's like people won't know until you said it. So the other case we had is we have a manager who's a Dutch lady. She's working in our Jordan office, which is an Arab country. So the Dutch is very low context. Everything has to be precise, clear, everything is spelled out. While the Jordanian Arab culture, very high context. So everything is assumed, similar to Chinese culture. So then she is, they need to arrange a conference, for week-long conference. And then the Dutch manager is asking the lady, the administrator in Jordanian administrator said, "Oh, does this conference venue have toilet, restaurant, and so on and so forth?" And then the other person think, "What on earth are you thinking about? Of course we do." But so of course, the danger is they they might have certain things, but if the Dutch manager doesn't ask to the down to every detail, so the delegates might find out at the last minute, actually, there are certain things they don't have. It's because the Jordanian will assume that, of course, everything will be arranged, but not necessarily. So that's a danger. So it's find this best way to, yeah, to communicate.
these are things that normally I wouldn't even have thought of either. And I think when when that conversation does come up, let's say where there is let's say a conflict in a cross-cultural conflict between a manager and employee, and
Yeah.
maybe an employee who has come from a background where cross-cultural awareness was a thing, and they come into a new company where it doesn't seem to be in place yet. How do you think should they approach their manager or should they approach human resources or who should they approach to say that I am not comfortable with the um let's say the cross-cultural awareness or maybe the cultural differences in this company, should there be more awareness about this or where can I find out more? How do they approach, let's say, their manager or their human resources about that?
Well, obviously, again, it's depend on the company. I think increasingly, because I'm aware there are more and more companies are becoming aware of this issue, and they started to run orientation courses for employees, and they have sometimes have in-house consultants to support them in this matter. I believe, yeah, HR is a right department um, to go, or should be the department to be responsible for such matter. So yeah, when it comes to manager, that depends whether that manager is open or willing to learn, willing to listen or not. So there's no one size fits all, but definitely the general training is really needed.
I think that's something that a lot of people they feel that they're open to, let's say, inclusive diversity in their companies, but they still aren't fully aware of, let's say, that cross-cultural awareness and the different, let's say, code of work ethics that might be experienced or let's say past experiences from country to country, and trying to be more open to that.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, definitely. I think we shouldn't be fooling ourselves as well, because nowadays many people travel to different countries for holidays. So we mustn't assume that, oh, I've been to visited so many countries, therefore I'm a cultured person. It's entirely different matter. So yeah, I think we shouldn't make that assumption.
And Liu, if more people want to find out more about your coaching and trainings, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yes, so I have a website. It's liuliucoaching.com. It's liu coaching.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. So yeah, these two are the best way to contact me. So yeah, and you can put my contacts
Yeah,
somewhere.
I'll stick them in the show notes as well if people want to
Sure.
get in contact with you. Liu, it was great having you on the show, and thank you again for joining us, and give yourself some leeway. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, please rate and review wherever you're listening to this, because it helps improve the rating of the show and makes it more easily found by others like you. Also, if you could take a minute to share this with family, friends, or a loved one, because if you found value from this episode, they may benefit from hearing this too. And what better way to help break the stigma around mental health than by opening a space for discussion with those closest to you? If you have any feedback or questions about today's episode or the show in general, or maybe you have ideas for topics that you want me to cover in the future, you can reach out and book a call with me at giveyourselfsomeleeway.com, or send me an email, eugene@leeway.ie. I read everything myself, and usually I respond within a day or so. And I love getting feedback from listeners, because this podcast is a learning process for me too. And your feedback is the best way that I can improve this for you. So until then, have an amazing day, and I really look forward to talking to you sometime. Until next time, take care.